All right, so welcome back to another deep dive with us.
You know, we love to dig into the stuff that you are curious about and try to pull out some of those gems.
Yeah, those aha moments so you don't have to. And today we are diving into the world of Zach Saleh.
Zach Saleh, this is a deep dive that came straight from our listener, Robert Plank.
Robert Plank met Zach on LinkedIn and was so blown away by him, he just had to share.
He said, you got to check out Zach Saleh. So, Robert, this one's for you.
Yeah, this one's for you, Robert.
Hmm.
And it sounds like you're at a little bit of a crossroads in your own relationships and looking for a little fresh perspective.
And I think Zach Saleh just might be the guy.
Well, he's definitely got a unique approach, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Best-selling author, entrepreneur, father, and he calls himself a values coach.
Values coach. What jumped out at me when I was looking at Zach Saleh was honestly his background.
Yeah,
He didn't follow the typical self-help guru path.
right.
Spent 20 years in the trenches,
Wow.
retail management, hospitality, even running his own roofing company. That's not exactly where you'd expect a relationship expert to come from.
Not your typical path.
Yeah,
You think they would have maybe studied psychology or something like that.
right.
But it's like he's got this real-world grit that you don't often see in the self-help space.
Totally.
And he takes that experience and applies it to the realm of personal relationships.
Yeah, and it really comes through in his book, The Book I Wish I Had Before Marriage and Divorce.
Oh, wow. Even the title kind of hits you right there.
I know.
It's like he's drawing from some pretty intense personal experience.
Oh, absolutely. He's very open about the fact that this book and his whole approach really stemmed from his own divorce.
Wow.
He talks about making a vow to himself to help his younger self avoid pain.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think we can all relate to that.
Totally. Like if I knew then what I know now.
Right.
But what I find interesting is that he doesn't just dwell on the past.
Mm-hmm.
He uses it as fuel to help others navigate their own relationship challenges.
Totally. And that's where his 4 pillars of fulfilling relationships come in.
Okay, so he's created a framework
He's created a framework,
that can dramatically improve any relationship.
and it's so much more than just common sense advice.
All right, I am on the edge of my seat here.
Yeah.
What are these 4 magical pillars?
They are chemistry, conflict management, expectations, and values.
Chemistry, conflict management, expectations, and values.
Mm.
Got it. Okay, so let's start with chemistry.
Okay.
And, when we say chemistry, we're not talking about just that initial spark or superficial attraction.
No, not at all. In fact, he's actually pretty critical of matching based solely on commonalities, circumstances, or that surface level chemistry.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
What does he call that?
He calls it toxic chemistry because it often leads to relationships that are built on shaky ground.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can have that chemistry and that spark, but if the foundation isn't there,
Mm-hmm.
then it's just going to fizzle.
You can try to force it, but eventually it's going to lead to sparks and not the good kind of.
He has this great analogy of plugging into the wrong electrical outlet,
Yes.
which I thought brilliant.
Yeah.
You can try to jam it in there,
You can.
but it's not going to work long term.
It's not going to work.
So then what does healthy chemistry look like, according to Zach?
It's about emotional safety and trust. Those deeper connections that allow you to truly be yourself without fear of judgment.
I like that.
Yeah.
Can you share your vulnerabilities with this person?
Yeah. Can you?
Do you feel supported in pursuing your dreams, even if they're different from theirs?
Yeah.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
It's not just about finding someone who likes the same things you do.
Yeah.
It's about feeling comfortable and secure being your authentic self.
Exactly. And that kind of chemistry takes effort and intention to cultivate.
Yeah, you can't just expect it to magically appear.
It doesn't.
So it's not just about finding the right person, it's about being the right partner too.
Totally. Zach talks about the importance of continually pursuing your partner,
Oh, I like that.
wooing them and keeping the spark alive.
Keeping the spark alive.
And he doesn't mean grand gestures or expensive gifts, but those small everyday actions that show you care.
I love that. So it's really about being present, being attentive, and making your partner feel valued.
Right.
Okay, so we've established that healthy chemistry is the foundation.
Right.
But what happens when conflict inevitably arises?
That's where Zach's next pillar comes in, conflict management. And he has a very specific and even a little quirky approach to this.
Ooh, I am intrigued. I am ready to hear all about it.
Well, get ready for the DNA approach.
The DNA approach.
It stands for data narrative ask.
Data narrative ask.
And it's about shifting your mindset from blame and defensiveness to curiosity and understanding.
Okay, this is already sounding like a game changer.
Right.
Break it down for us.
Okay.
What exactly does it mean to approach conflict with Data narrative ask.
Imagine this, Robert. You and your partner are having a disagreement.
Okay.
Maybe they forgot an important date or didn't follow through on something they promised. Instead of immediately launching into an accusation,
Great.
you start with the data.
Just the facts.
Just the facts, no opinions or interpretations.
So instead of saying, you never listened to me,
Right.
you might say, you didn't pick up my dry cleaning like we discussed.
Exactly. You're removing the emotional charge and sticking to the objective truth. This helps to de-escalate the situation and prevent things from getting too heated.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful. But let's be honest, it's our emotional reactions that often cause the most damage and conflicts.
Yeah.
That's where the narrative comes in, right?
Right. Now you get to express your feelings, but you do it in a way that takes ownership.
Okay.
Instead of blaming your partner, you focus on your own experience.
So going back to the dry cleaning example, you might say something like, when you didn't pick up my dry cleaning, it made me feel unimportant, like my request wasn't a priority for you.
That's it. You're owning your feelings without attacking your partner. You're saying, this is my experience, this is how I felt.
Right.
Which opens the door for a more productive conversation.
I like that.
Yeah.
And then the final piece of the puzzle ask.
Yes. This is where you turn to your partner with genuine curiosity.
Ugh.
You might say, can you help me understand what happened with the dry cleaning? Or is there something going on that I'm not aware of? You're inviting them to share their perspective without assuming the worst.
This is so brilliant. Instead of getting stuck in that blame game,
Yeah.
you're creating a space for understanding and empathy.
Exactly. And this DNA approach can be applied to any type of conflict, not just in romantic relationships.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's a valuable tool for communicating more effectively with anyone in your life.
Oh, yeah. I'm already thinking about all the different ways I can use this. And it all goes back to that idea of radical ownership that Zach talks about, right? We touched on it briefly earlier. But can you explain what that means in the context of relationships?
It's about taking 100% responsibility for your own reactions, even when your partner messes up.
So it's not about accepting bad behavior.
No, it's not about accepting bad behavior, but it's about choosing how you respond to it.
Oh, that's good. You always have a choice in how you react. That really resonates with me. You know, I've definitely been in situations where my own reactions have escalated a conflict, even when my partner wasn't intentionally trying to hurt me.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
And radical ownership is about recognizing that we have the power to choose a different path.
Right.
It's about taking control of our own emotions and behaviors rather than letting them dictate the course of the relationship.
This is already blowing my mind, and we've only just scratched the surface of Zach's work. Robert, you've given us a lot to unpack here.
I know.
I'm so excited to keep diving deeper into these 4 pillars.
Me too. Up next, we'll be exploring the world of expectations, including those bids, boundaries, and yes, even booty calls that Zach talks about.
Oh my goodness.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back, and we were ready to tackle Zach Saleh's 3rd pillar, expectations.
This one really hit home for me because unclear expectations are just asking for trouble.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster in any relationship.
In any relationship.
And he breaks this down into 3 categories that I found both insightful and hilarious: bids, boundaries, and booty calls.
I know. I love how he puts those together.
Seriously, who thinks to put those 3 things together?
It's classic Zach. You know, he takes a potentially heavy topic and makes it fun.
Yeah, but he's onto something here. Each of these categories highlights a different area where unspoken expectations can just wreak havoc.
Totally.
So let's start with bids. What exactly are we bidding on in our relationships?
It's those small, often unspoken requests for connection that we make all day long.
Oh,
It could be as simple as wanting a hug when you walk in the door,
okay.
asking your partner about their day, or sharing a funny story you heard.
So it's like these little feelers you're putting out there, just hoping for that response that says, I see you,
Exactly.
I hear you, I care about you.
And when those bids are consistently ignored or dismissed, it can create a real sense of distance in the relationship.
Yeah, like you're speaking a different language and your partner doesn't understand. This is making me think about all those times I felt hurt and neglected, but I couldn't quite put my finger on why.
Right.
Maybe it was those bids for connection that weren't being met.
It's definitely something to reflect on. And what Zach emphasizes is that it's not always about grand gestures. Sometimes just acknowledging your partner's bid, even with a simple nod or a smile, can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's like making those small deposits into the emotional bank account of your relationship.
I love that analogy. And speaking of deposits and withdrawals, that brings us to boundaries, which are all about protecting what's important to you.
Okay, boundaries.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a term that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it actually mean to set healthy boundaries in a relationship?
It's knowing your limits and communicating them clearly.
Okay.
This is what I'm okay with. This is what I'm not okay with. It could be about anything from how you spend your time to how you handle disagreements to what kind of physical touch you're comfortable with.
So it's about drawing that line in the sand and saying, this is where my personal space begins, and I need you to respect that.
And enforcing those boundaries, even when it's uncomfortable, is crucial. It shows your partner that you value yourself.
Yeah.
And that you're not willing to compromise your well-being for the sake of the relationship.
That's such an important point. It's not about being controlling or demanding.
It's not.
It's about taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And setting a standard for how you expect to be treated.
And Zach points out that how your partner responds to your boundaries can reveal a lot about their character.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do they respect your limits even when they don't agree with them? Or do they try to push you into doing what they want?
It's like a litmus test for the health of the relationship.
Absolutely. And speaking of tests, let's move on to the category that probably raised a few eyebrows. Booty calls.
I'll admit, when I first saw that in the outline, I was like, where is he going with this?
I know.
But I'm starting to see how it fits into this larger picture of expectations.
Exactly. Even if a relationship isn't following that traditional model of, monogamy or commitment, there are still expectations around intimacy. And ignoring those expectations can lead to just as much hurt and confusion as in any other type of relationship.
It's about being honest with yourself and your partner about what you want, what
Yeah.
you're comfortable with, and being willing to have those maybe slightly awkward conversations to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Exactly. And whether you're talking about bids for a hug, boundaries around personal space, or expectations around intimacy, the underlying principle is the same. Clear, honest communication is essential.
This is giving me a lot to think about in my own relationships. I'm realizing that I've often avoided those tough conversations because I just don't want to rock the boat.
It's so common.
But I can see how that avoidance has actually created more problems in the long run.
We think we're being nice or easygoing by not voicing our needs, but it leads to resentment
Yeah.
and misunderstandings.
And Zach really encourages us to face our fears and have those conversations, even when they feel uncomfortable. He argues that it's the only way to build a relationship based on true intimacy and respect.
He's right. It's recognizing that healthy relationships require effort and vulnerability. And sometimes that means having tough conversations and being willing to compromise.
Okay, Robert, we've covered chemistry, conflict management, and expectations.
We have.
That brings us to the final pillar. And it's one that Zach is incredibly passionate about: values.
This is where we get to the core of who we are and what truly matters to us.
Okay.
And Zach's insights on values have the power to transform not just our relationships, but our entire lives.
I am ready to dive in. Let's hear it. Okay, so we've talked about chemistry, conflict management, expectations. A lot to chew on already. But now we're at the grand finale, Zach Saleh's fourth pillar, and I have a feeling this one's going to tie everything together.
This is where it gets really interesting. We're diving into values. And Zach Saleh is adamant that this isn't just some fluffy self-help buzzword.
Yeah, I've read plenty of those books, Discover Your Values,
Yeah.
but they never really explain how to actually do that
Yeah.
or what to do with them once you figure them out.
Exactly. Zach goes way deeper.
Mm-hmm.
He sees values as the guiding principles that shape every aspect of our lives. It's not about morals or common interests or even the roles we play, but it's about identifying those core characteristics that we embody and that drive our actions.
Okay, so let's say I'm trying to figure out my own values.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I even begin?
He has a really practical method.
Mm-hmm.
He encourages you to ask yourself some pretty soul-searching questions.
Okay.
Like, what are your non-negotiables in a relationship? What qualities do you admire most in others? What are the things that you're willing to fight for? These questions help you uncover what truly matters to you at your deeper level.
So it's not just about saying, I value honesty. It's about understanding how that value shows up in your everyday life.
Yes.
How you interact with others, how you make decisions,
Yeah.
even how you spend your time and money.
Exactly. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
I like that.
And here's where it gets really powerful in the context of relationships.
Okay, tell me more.
When you and your partner share the same core values, you're more likely to be on the same page about the big things in life. You'll approach decision-making from a similar perspective. You'll be working towards shared goals.
It's like having that built-in compass that guides you both in the same direction.
Exactly. And even if you don't share all of the same values,
Yeah.
it's crucial to at least respect and understand your partner's values. That's how you build a foundation of mutual respect and appreciation.
This is making me think about some past relationships where I just felt like I was constantly clashing with my partner.
Yeah.
Maybe it was because our values were just fundamentally misaligned.
It's definitely possible. When your values are in conflict, it can create a lot of friction and tension. It's like trying to build a house on two different foundations.
Right. It's just not going to work.
It's not going to work long term.
So, Robert, if you're listening, pay close attention to this part, because understanding your own values and how they align with your partners can be a game changer in your relationships. Zach's insights have given us so much to think about today. From that initial spark of chemistry, to navigating conflict with the DNA approach, to setting those clear expectations, and finally to understanding the power of values. It's a holistic framework for building stronger, more fulfilling relationships.
And it all comes back to that idea of personal responsibility that Zach emphasizes. Taking ownership of our thoughts, feelings, and actions, and making conscious choices that align with our values.
He's really given us a roadmap for creating relationships that are not only passionate and loving, but also grounded in that mutual respect and understanding.
He has.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling inspired to put some of these principles into practice in my own life.
Me too, Robert. Thanks for sending us Zach Saleh's work. He's a true gem, and I have a feeling his insights are going to resonate with a lot of our listeners.
If you're ready to dive deeper into Zach's world, you can find his book, The Book I Wish I Had Before Marriage and Divorce, online. We'll also link to his website in the show notes.
And be sure to let us know what you think, Robert. We always love hearing from our listeners.
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those relationships